Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are tuning in, listening to the show. And we have Jack Russo with us today. And a little surprise, which actually Zoom, no one would ever know. That's the beauty about Zoom. But I'll let Jack tell you where he's checking in from. And what's going on there?
I'm here from the great retirement capital of the world in Florida, which is near Tampa. I think the average age is about 96 years old. Maybe it's a little younger than that. But I'm taking care of my mom, who's sort of at the end of life, doing sort of the end of life drill at 90. And my brother is really super sick and really in total end of life in hospice.
Wow.
Long story, but the short version is definitely smoked too many cigarettes over even the relatively short life that he had. And so he is sort of testing the Florida safety net system in hospice, which is very religious too, by the way. I should tell you, it's a very religious place to go into any of those hospices. They actually put at the very entry this little prayer chapel. And they want you to go. They want you to kind of go in there before you visit, because in their head, you should really be helping who's ever there get ready for whatever follows this life. Like, they're big religious believers.
Well, you know, this is kind of a great segue, Jack. I just thought we're going to obviously talk today a little bit about some of the changes that are taking place in California with COVID and some of these other things that are taking place business-wise. You know, real estate, how it's affecting real estate. But it just came to me that, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference in California. I know you've been there 6+ weeks. You're familiar with Florida because your mom's been there for a while. So maybe give the listeners some perspective of, you know, a lot of people, as you know, are saying, I'm getting out of California, and they're looking for places to go. What would your perspective be about maybe the pluses and minuses of someone, you know, relocating both business, personally, from California to Florida, let's say?
Right, because remember, we've had a couple of shows, I think, where we've talked about getting out of California is pretty much leaving behind a very high state income tax, and really high, more than just state income tax, just lots of taxes. We can go through all of them, but let's just say lots of taxes, and moving to a low tax or a lower tax, or maybe even a zero tax, as Florida is on the state side system, zero tax. And of course, we've talked about Puerto Rico, where it literally is also zero federal tax and zero state tax, but there's a 4% Puerto Rico tax maximum guarantee if you do it the right way. And we'll make that another show at another time. But conceptually, when you make a move to Florida, which I think I've actually done now for actual valid reasons, which is my family members are all very ill and end of life. My need to be here is very clear, and my ability to sort of do what I do as a lawyer, given the state of COVID-19 Zoom virtual law practice, it can be done from anywhere. And Florida is a pretty decent place because the air quality is a lot better than California, but that's just something that's a coincidence. We happened to get the call that my brother was in the hospital, and my mother was in the hospital too at the same time concurrently. So we jumped on a plane, and literally I jumped on a plane with a backpack. I'm here with just like minimal clothing, but, you know, a pair of shorts and a t-shirt is fine here in Florida. I mean, literally, that's the standard fare of what people wear. I mean, that just is.
Yeah.
So the weather is great. The air quality is far better. The price of gas here is like $1.95 a gallon. I think that's half the price of California. I mean, literally. And you can buy lunch. Of course, you know, the restaurants are closed, so it's takeout. But you could buy lunch here, I think, for about 25% of the price you pay in California.
Yeah.
Same quality lunch, but 25% of the price. So there's a lot of retired people here. And so the quality of the people and the quality of the conversations, when you would have them, say, on the street, although they're not that common on the street, it's a different quality of people. It's a different quality conversation. They're mostly retired people. I think I jokingly told you the average age is about 96. So I'm like a young stud here, which is a bad. In fact, I was going to show you, my mother was saying to me that I should actually go out and buy myself like a hairpiece. So she, because she's getting older, so she gave me one of her hairpieces and she said, "You should put this on."
Oh my God, that's good.
You should put this on and really look like you're from Florida. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. Maybe I'll even do that on Joe's podcast. So I brought it here. And look at that, Joe. I mean, you got to say, don't I look like I'm just like styling here?
I just saw 50% of the audience leave.
Did that just happen? No, seriously. If you look at this, I mean, I have to say that if you actually get your hair done here in Florida,
and
there actually are a lot of older people who do exactly this. They exactly do this sort of, I want to be more youthful. And you look at their face, you say, that guy's like 90. But he's got that head of blonde hair, not a single gray hair. Come on, that just can't be right. But I would say the quality of life for a retired person with no taxes, a pretty good healthcare system, because they do have, like, United Healthcare and Humana do provide continued healthcare to older people. They don't discriminate. They take a relatively small monthly amount. What I did discover, because I bought a vehicle here, I bought a house here too, I think. I mean, we'll see. We told that story off the air. I won't bore people. But I own a house, and I've literally kind of moved. Mentally, I've moved, and I've got a car. So now I've got to go to the Department of Motor Vehicle and get my license changed to Florida, right? And I say to myself, well, what's the actual quality of life difference? Well, one thing that's true is Floridians get into far more car accidents because of older people driving. So the price for insurance is about double what it is in California. So if you pay in California $100 a month for a decent set of car insurance, that price is going to be $200 a month here.
Wow.
That's the one discernible difference, I would say, is out there, is the price of liability insurance is higher. And by the way, the number of lawyers that bring lawsuits is way higher. The bulletin boards on the freeway, every other board is a lawyer saying, call me, you have a case, you've been taken advantage of, elder law, elder abuse, you know.
So is that partly why they're all driving golf carts too, trying to get away from
I think there is an argument that the children take the keys to the car away, but they let them drive these golf carts that go like 12 miles an hour. So, you know, how bad can the incident be? And, you know, you don't have to leave the community, because if you have one of those golf carts and you want to go golfing, the golf place is just like 5-minute golf cart ride away. The community center is a 5-minute golf ride away. The grocery store, which is a big chain like Safeway, but it's called Publix, Publix. It's like 5 minutes away. Basically, it's a self-serve community. You don't really need to go to the city of Tampa, which is about 30 minutes south of here. I mean, you don't need to go to Tampa. You could do everything within a 5-minute golf cart ride if you want to.
So you have the advantage of the state, no state tax. You have really just the cost of living in general has got to be, I mean, housing has to be, what, it depends on where you go, but if you talk about where you are, you could get a beautiful place you're talking about for $400,000. It would cost you, what, $1.5 million or so, maybe?
No, it would cost you $4 million in California. What you get here for $100 a square foot is $1,000 a square foot in California.
That's amazing.
It's 10x, Joe. It's 10x.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's a crazy, crazy set of numbers. I mean, the quality is the same quality, maybe arguably better quality. Now, there is, you know, let's do some of the downside. There is hurricane risk. We did have a hurricane come through here. We had 2 of them, in fact, that everyone was glued to the TV, whether these 2 hurricanes were converging. and whether they were going to hit here or they were going to hit Houston. They ended up hitting Houston pretty badly, although they petered out. But people here are worried, and there are companies that focus on creating shutters that come down on your windows. Like, you shut everything as though you're going underground. And there are some custom homes that have storm basements where you go down to the basement like you are literally in Kansas, and you're going to get blown away. Your house might get blown away, but you'll be down in the basement. So there are hurricane risks that exists in Puerto Rico as well. That exists certainly in Florida. That exists certainly within this set of Gulf states. And there's more of a sort of what might be called, hey, it's okay to have a gun. I mean, there are people that walk the street with a sidearm.
They do, really.
And their view of life is, hey, man, someone's going to F with me, and they're not going to live to tell the story about it. And you know what? It's like a stand your ground kind of state. So if someone blows someone away, there's no big investigation about it. It's like, hey, that idiot passed and by the way, I should tell you, there's a lot of caution among anyone that visits a home. So
is that right? Yeah.
So if you have a medical provider that's visiting a home, they'll say, tell your mom that I'm going to be here, and like it's arranged, and she shouldn't get all upset or excited if her alarm goes off because she forgot to reset the alarm, because she keeps the alarm on like 7x24, and someone opens the door without resetting the alarm and it goes blasting off. They get worried about, you're visiting someone's house. It's like, you better be giving some notification. So you don't see very many solicitors come through here knocking on doors to try to sell vacuum cleaners or anything like that.
Well, so there's a distinct advantage with cost, of course, like you said, weather, hurricanes, and you have, let's face it, during the summertime, it gets pretty humid, right? I mean, pretty humid. You guys are coming into September, starting to come into a better time of the year in Florida.
I think so. The weather gets sort of a little better, less humidity, less temperature. There are some storms. I mean, there is some rain you get through here, but the rain tends to be, they don't have a water issue, Joe. California technically still has a drought issue. The water here is plentiful. The water here just can't be beat in many ways.
What some people may not see, but I'll just kind of give you the visual anyway. With Jack with his wig on, I'm going to take a picture of him on the Zoom conference here because I can't help but share that image with, there you go. That's beautiful.
This is my mom's wig. My mom, of course, said, you can inherit all my wigs. She's starting to give stuff away. So you just be amazed, Joe. I don't know if you've done this with your parents. I don't know where they...
I haven't yet. My mom is still alive. She's doing pretty well. She's about 83 and she's still doing well. But one of these days we'll all face it, right? I mean...
You should start to go through the process of what might be called getting ready for the end, because the fur coats that my dad bought my mom from the 1940s, the vintage fur, I mean, Lee was putting them on and saying, I don't think this is politically correct to have in California, but it is some of the best stuff. I mean, this is stuff that my dad paid like $5,000 for when $5,000 was like $100,000, really high-end stuff. And my mother's like, I don't wear that anymore. Just take it. I'm in Florida now. That was moved from New York. They moved to Florida like 25 years ago. Just take it. Take all this stuff.
Wow. Boy. So you got obviously cost of living, housing, state tax is different. But then all the things you just talked about, I'm sure that groceries, gas, anything you do, other than maybe auto insurance, of course. Now, I should know this, but what are like the property tax rates? Do you know how do they calculate property?
The property tax rates are comparable, but remember the assessed value base is a lot lower. Okay. So I think they're like 1.5% to 2%, but the base is like 400,000. So you're paying 8,000, let's say 8,000 a year. But remember, you're paying 8,000 a year, and you're actually living in a relatively clean place. I mean, you don't see any homeless people. You don't see garbage on the street. I mean, literally, the streets are really clean. They take care of the community. There's a HOA fee for the community, but it's not that high. I want to say it might be like with the health club and with the golf course all wrapped in, I think it might be $200 a month. You know what that would be in California? That would be $2,000 a month.
I was just going to say, yeah.
With a golf course wrapped in, I mean, a community center, a health center, a fitness trainer that's there, like literally where you're getting customized fitness training if that's what you want. Of course, none of those people are doing it. So you go there and the guy's like, I'm not busy. Sure, you're here. I mean, technically, you're getting a lot more value for your dollar. I mean, that's a way to look at it. And you're getting it in a way that's sort of delivered with the right attitude. I would say the service providers that come, like the refrigerator here blew up. So it was it's a 4-year-old refrigerator, but it's GE, and GE, of course, has had its ups and downs. The guy who came to fix it, he fixed it in like a half hour. He was all smiles. He was like, yeah, I can get this done in an hour. I think he charged like $75. Wow. That service call would have been at least $300 in California.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
three, 4 bags of groceries here, $70. 3-4 bags of comparable groceries in California, $200. I think it's 1/3. I think the price of food is 1/3. I don't know why. By the way, the tomatoes here are way better than the tomatoes in California. I don't know what's happened to California. The tomatoes and the peaches here, the tomatoes, the watermelon, the peaches here, all those things we're within a few minutes of farmland.
Really?
Organic farms here are plentiful, and there still are street farm stands. There still are roadside farm stands. The quality of the fruit and vegetables that you get here is arguably better than California. I mean, California has some things that are better, but fundamentally, I would say if you were to look at price to value, you just can't beat it. And I was never a big believer because I always thought my parents who would tell me this, I just thought, oh, they're old people. They don't know what they're talking about. The weather is shitty. Whenever I visited, the weather was always humid and too hot. And, now that I'm here for a while, you start to kind of realize that there is something to be said for kind of taking the more relaxed view. There's not also this hyper view of life where everything's got to get done instantly. I mean, the refrigerator went out, that had to be done fast, but there wasn't this hyper. I don't even think we would have gotten a service provider in California to come the same day and not charge some ginormous fee, right? Yeah. I mean, that's when you get service providers who do things. I mean, the one thing my mom did, actually my brother did before he ended up getting really sick, he arranged to have a backup generator installed on this property because when the hurricanes come through, you lose power. If you lose power, you lose your refrigeration. Right. You lose your refrigeration, you lose all your food. So, I mean, there is kind of a domino effect. Yeah. And that device is powered off of the natural gas, which doesn't get cut off. So it has an engine that runs based on the natural gas. Well, it turned out that thing was somehow flashing a red light saying something was wrong with it. They actually came out the same day. This was before the hurricane hit. My mom was like, the hurricane's going to hit. All of my medical equipment's going to shut down. I'm going to die. I said, would you want to die? You said you want to die. She said, no, I don't want to die that way.
So I have this, it's interesting to look at now. And of course, we always look at history. We'll have to look back a year, 2 years from now. But you have this, I think you have an element of people in California, well, for that matter, all over the place, but let's stick to California. You and I are familiar with it. An element that are overreacting maybe, and they're thinking, I got to get out of here. I got to change my life. I'm going to quit this. I'm going to quit that. And then you have a percentage of people are really having a conversation about how long is this going to be? Is there changes going to be major like this? And should we leave? I mean, this is interesting. You wonder, again, we won't know. History will tell us a few years down the road. But between the pandemic, the tax differences issues, and then I think on top of that, really businesses and people are rethinking. Jack, I'll let you answer in a second, but I heard Apple was interesting. So the percentage of jobs added to the economy the last several months is amazing. The percentage that Apple added. Well, you know what they noted in that today in the business report? It was interesting. They said Apple added a huge percent of those jobs, but they said the difference is, guess what? Apple added those jobs for the first time ever outside of big cities.
Outside California too, right?
And New York and big cities. So their point was, with this whole pandemic and the way business is going, they're adding a ton of jobs, but in these call centers, and most of them are app developers, right? So they're adding app developers. So their point was, now you could have an app developer that lives wherever he or she wants, working for Apple.
Right. I mean, it's in part a gig economy, but we've got AB5 in California that says, no, you can't do that. I mean, California is pushing back in ways that are somewhat unnatural because the jobs are becoming more gig jobs, but California is saying, no, those are really employees, which of course means if there's an audit and if they're re-designated employees, companies will start to say, if we went to Nevada or we went to Florida, we went to Texas, 3 no-tax states, they would take the view, you can call them whatever they want, just give them a job and give them an income. We're not going to get in your way. Right. That's a sort of freedom of mobility, freedom of contract, freedom of get things done. We're not going to get in your way. And you're going to see this, and I think we're going to have some coming events, mark my words. Elon Musk is definitely moving himself out of California. Maybe he's announced it, maybe he's hinted at it. He sold all of his real estate, or he's in the process of selling all of his real estate. There's no doubt to me that his expansion plans are more targeted at Texas and Nevada than they are California. That means some of the talent, including himself, and he's a major talented guy, will be outside California. When you start to get people that have the major talent leave California, like me as an example, I start to influence 100 people because 100 people say, Jack is not a stupid guy. And he's made the calculations and he's decided to be in Florida. Now he's got reasons, he's got personal reasons to boot. Okay, that's a factor. But he does the math and he says, California is not improving. For every dollar spent in taxes, you're not getting $1.10 worth of services. You're getting maybe 46 cents going down to 33 cents, going down to 25%. Now, I pay a lot of respect to the fact that California has great educational institutions. I got a great education at UCLA Law School, at UC Berkeley, at Stanford University. They are wonderful institutions. But when the rest of the state is pushing back, and I could continue, whether I teach or I'm a student at any of those 3 institutions over Zoom, and get the same quality of service, why do I have to pay on a theoretical $1 million worth of income? I should be so lucky, given the pandemic, that I make that kind of money. Why should I pay what will amount to a $130,000 check to the franchise tax board when I could take that money and buy myself another house here in Florida and have rental income come out of it? Because you could buy rental properties all day long here and put people in that rents them, and you've got essentially an income stream in a tax-free state.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big, it's a big adjustment. We'll see if it really, what kind of impact it has. I know we're large cities. I mean, most people are seeing what's happening in large cities. San Francisco's rents are down 12 or 13% in the last 90 to 120 days. It's funny, we always talk about cycles and not to get too cocky no matter what we're doing, because life always has a way of coming back and turning. And, all the years, right, these landlords kept raising the rent thinking no one will ever want to leave these places. Now you're hearing stories about landlords trying to entice people to stay. It's amazing.
Well, landlords like to get regular rent checks. They like to theoretically have happy tenants. I mean, a landlord-tenant relationship can be very nasty, and there are lots of cases that document that. But a landlord-tenant relationship can be very partner-like, and good tenants do respect the property. They do pay the rent on time, and they do act as like a red alert system. Hey, the building needs its gutters cleaned, or the building has a homeless person camping out, you got to do something about it, or the building security is weak and can be improved. I mean, they act as partners in making sure that the property doesn't lose value over time. And the better tenants tend to like fix things themselves. When I'm a tenant, in a particular property and I've been a tenant, I don't pester the landlord because I know that that's going to be like, I'm not renewing your lease. You know, you're one of those people that are more of a taker than a giver. I like to be a giver. So if my toilet gets plugged, I'm the first one to get my own plunger and plunge away at it and call a Roto-Rooter guy if it comes to, you know, getting something done, and just paying for it unless it's really a really big bill, in which case I'll let the landlord know and maybe even share the bill, or at least talk about how is that going to be accounted for in the future negotiation of rent, right? There's a future negotiation about the future of rent. And some people don't realize that landlords tend to give discounts to tenants that are good tenants. So right now, I think there are a lot of tenants that are still paying for office space that they're not using. So the wear and tear on the building is way down. The elevators are not going up and down as often. There's lots of stuff that's not happening. The landlord's getting arguably a windfall. But at some point, those tenants are going to wake up and say, I can't renew this lease anymore. So I'm not getting any value out of it, right? I mean, you've been out of your office. You've been out of your office now, I think, for at least a couple of months, 3 months, probably more, right?
Which office? No, I'm actually still in my office, but I haven't used my studio, if that's what you're talking about. I've been fortunate. I've been lucky to go into my office because there's only 4 or 5 of us in a 5,000 square foot office. I got a private office.
Okay, so you're driving in from San Jose to Los Gatos, parking your car, and basically more or less mask free, more or less. Although here, by the way, in Florida, there was a big announcement that all the doctors got together and wrote a letter to the governor saying, we got to have a state statute. Everyone needs to wear a mask if they leave their house, period, full stop, no exceptions. And you get cited and you get a ticket if you don't do that. Like, they're talking about mandatory masks, even outdoors.
Wow.
Because they're worried. The Florida doctors saying we got an old population. They are susceptible to lots of risks of comorbidities, and they are easily hit by a younger person. I mean, my sister, she probably should be retired, but she can't afford it. She works as a school teacher. She had to make the hard decision because the governor has sent all the kids back to school here. It's a big controversial issue.
Wow.
Are the kids going to act as, like, you know, virus transmitters? Because they probably could carry the virus without even showing symptoms.
Right.
So my sister made the hard decision to say, I'm not going back to work. I got to figure out how to make money. That's a different issue. Because she said, I'm 70 years old. I've been a teacher here for 40 years. I'm ready to retire soon, but I'm not ready to retire yet. I don't want to get C-19. And she gets C-19 and comes in. Her older husband, who's disabled, he gets it from her. If she gets it from the kids, she's like a 2nd or 3rd grade school teacher. Those kids are sneezing all over the place, right?
Right.
They have runny noses all over the place. Then he gives it to a bunch of her sons who are, let's say, are visiting. Then their kids get it, and then of course they all come and visit my mom, and then my mom gets it. So I guess she gets her death wish without the mushroom soup.
Wow.
You know, she gets it a different way. And I said, you're just signing a death warrant for everyone that comes in contact with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
That's the way you have to start thinking of this.
Well, you do. You have to protect yourself for sure, and around you, because it's nasty stuff, and you see what happens when people get it for sure. We don't know the long-term effects either. So before we wrap things up today, what do you think? What's the tipping point for the state of California? Do you think legislatively, or the politicians? What would have to happen, do you think, before they start really sitting around a table thinking, boy, this place is falling apart, we better make some changes? Or you think that the train's already left that track and they're just, no matter what, they're going to keep taxing and making it tougher for business?
I think that there's going to be 3 things that happen, and then we're going to see what might be called the formal end of the famous Roman era. Like, what killed Rome used to be the center of the world. Rome is kind of a deteriorating tourist community. If you ever go visit Rome, which as an Italian, everyone's got to go to Rome sooner or later if you have any Italian in your blood at all. But Rome was the center of the world. You could say it took over from Athens, when Athens was the center of the world in the time of, Plato and Socrates and so on. Rome was the center of the world in the time of Caesar and these great Roman leaders, and it's not that anymore at all. When did Rome kind of go downhill? When was sort of Rome was burning? When was the end of Rome? We're going to see that in California, but only after three things really push people in the direction of, I can't really stay in California from what I see. Number one, income taxes will likely get, mark my words, we should actually put this in the show notes so we remember what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, taxes will get to 20 to 25% from the current 13.3%. So they'll more or less double, more or less, within the next 5 years. Number two, the use of the money will not actually improve the homeless situation that we have in California. In fact, we'll see more homeless come in because California will have the safety net of food and free cell phones and who knows, free whatever for, the number of homeless. And we'll start to say, what we've done is we've taxed people to support a homeless community that's growing. It's actually going in the wrong direction. They're not getting jobs or sort of hanging out buying, alcohol and potato chips.
It's getting worse now. Did you hear that Gavin Newsom has allocated like 13 or 14,000 hotel rooms in Northern California for homeless?
Well, so if you're a homeless person living, say, in a cold part of Montana, maybe you get on a train or you hitch a ride with a semi-trailer truck and you say, I got to make my way to California, man. That's the promised land. What's the point of being in cold Montana and freezing my ass off? So that's the second thing, that this is something that I think Steve King mentioned. He didn't mind moving to Arizona and paying the taxes in Arizona, which is not a zero tax state. It's more like a 4%. But he said the quality of the services, he thought, in that state justified the tax. People do that equation. And then the third thing is we're going to see more and more of what I would call the regulatory red tape that starts to say, even if this is a close calculation between cost and benefit, there's so much red tape. So examples of it are like, if you're a public company, you have to have more women on the board. That's a great idea, but you can't force it. And you can't say to people, if you don't, we're gonna fine you for it. We're gonna charge you an extra fee. Or the latest one, which we mentioned pre-show, is some people are circulating the idea that California should have a 5% startup equity charge. Wow. So you start Bundle Select, and automatically you have the state of California as a shareholder. They haven't paid you anything. They haven't put any money in the business. They haven't put any time in the business. But they're like, hey, we're there and we're providing the high quality air, but we're providing something to you that justified you starting the business. So you make us a 5% non-voting shareholder. Well, I don't know. People are going to say that's crazy. So if I go public as a company, the state of California's sovereign fund, when the offering, let's say it's a $500 million offering, they're going to get 5%. They're going to get 25 million that should have really gone to real investors. Why would I start a company in California when I could start it in Nevada or Texas or Florida or anywhere else and not face that red tape or that regulatory approach? And then you got AB5 dealing with employees that contractors who are not really wanting to be employees, getting the ability later to say, well, I was really an employee, so you should pay me all these additional benefits. I mean, at some point, it becomes a nightmare for people to do it. And believe me, this is starting. I've had a number of startup clients that were ready to start up in California. They said, you know what? I've decided I'm going to do it. And I've had so far one that went to Texas, several that went to Nevada, and a few that even went to Utah, which surprised me. Like Utah wasn't really on my map. And they said, the talent pool in Utah is a lot younger.
Oh.
It's like the average age in Utah is like 24 or something.
Well, I got to wrap things up. Before we go, remind everybody where they could reach you with or without your wig. And,
I have to say, I'm starting to, my mom said to me, I should say, when she gave me this, she said to me, that is going to protect your head from the UV light that might give you skin cancer.
Okay.
And there was a certain degree of, she said, you could wear a hat But you know what? If you want to look younger here, you just take one of these and get it restyled. I think it's a little too light yellow. I think I've got to get the different color version, or maybe I've got a color. It's all natural hair, by the way. She spent a lot of money. This is beautiful hair.
I want to know what Lee thinks about that.
Oh, Lee was like, "You are crazy. You're not going to wear that. That really is upsetting me. I can't believe it." She was so, of course, she's got beautiful blonde hair. And I say, "You color your hair. Don't tell me that there's no gray in your hair, because I won't believe that." And she does miss, I should tell you, she does miss her hairdresser here. She's like, "I'm never going to find the same hairdresser. I'm never going to find the same hairdresser." So my point is that Computer Law Group is really a national firm. This is the way I think of it. I've always thought of it this way. I'm licensed in New York. I'm licensed in California. We cover California north, south. In fact, we cover the whole West Coast from the state of Washington right down to San Diego. Yeah. And so we cover the entire state. We also cover Hawaii, and we've got lawyers and offices in those places. They're very virtual right now, but if you needed to have a meeting, we have affiliated lawyers. And now we're sort of, you could argue we're headed east, and we have cases in places like Texas. I'm sure we'll have cases here in Florida. We have cases in New York, and I'm licensed in New York. So I guess I take the Florida bar next, which is not that simple, but I'll study for it and take it. I'll probably be the oldest person taking the bar, and they'll laugh at me. Maybe I'll wear the hair just to look a little younger. I do look about 10 years younger with this, Joe. Give me throw me a bone here, right? I do look. You
do look younger. That's true.
And so, this is what keeps life interesting. New challenges, new adaptations, new ways to compare and contrast. And then, you can visit California. You just can't stay in California for more than 89 days. So you gotta count your days. And by the way, the weather's not so great and the air quality is not so great that now is not the exact greatest time to be in California. So I'm blessed that we got out just by coincidence.
Yeah. Make sure we know, let those that are listening, how to reach you, regardless of where Jack's in Florida. It's still nothing changes. Everything's virtual now. So how do they get a hold of you?
Right. So the main way, of course, is usually email, which is jrusso, JRUSSO at computerlaw, one word, computerlaw.com. The website is computerlaw.com. We do answer the phone. The phone gets transferred to me here at 650-327-9800. We do have I give people a direct line number to reach me, which finds me, which is the 650-444-2240. And in general, I'd say we're probably more accessible because I'm now covering all the time zones, because I get up at 6:30 in the morning. That's like 3:30 in California. And it's like early afternoon in Europe, and we have clients in Europe. In fact, I did a big meeting with a bunch of Europeans this morning, literally early this morning. And so we span, and I'm typically up pretty late, and the lawyers in our office are up pretty late as well. So we span the whole sort of time zone thing, if you ask me. And so I think in some ways we've been more productive, not less productive. But of course, it's a different way of working, right? It's a totally different way of working.
Well, I wish you all the best with your mom and your brother, and let's try to connect next week again and give us an update, and we'll have another subject.
Absolutely. I will say 2 or 3 little parting remarks. Number one, when you deal with end-of-life issues, you do appreciate life a lot more and what you do with life. Number 2, I think you have a new respect for gratitude for whatever hits. The fact that you woke up and you're living and breathing and still feel good about your own life, I think is a really important aspect. Mm-hmm. And number 3, you start to realize that you should really pay attention to your own future. So I say to everyone, look at your own human potential and how to make that human potential something that you'll look back on when you do get to be 90, if you should be so lucky to get to 90, because most people don't make it to 90. Right. You can look back and say, you know what, I really did some interesting things, took interesting challenges, and made the best out of a set of lemons that get thrown at you, made the best lemonade that you can kind of be proud of. I think that's the way you have to think of things.
Well said. Good parting comments. All right. Well, take care of yourself, Jack, and we'll be in touch with you. We'll do another show next week.
Thanks, Joe. Take care.
All right. Good luck with it. Yeah, good luck with everything.
Bye-bye. Sure. Bye.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.